You've watched him throw your kid in the air and thought, is that necessary? You've seen the roughhousing escalate past the point you'd ever take it, and you stepped in because someone had to. And maybe, quietly, you've wondered whether you could do this whole thing on your own, if you had to, whether what he does really changes anything. It does. And the research behind how is going to reframe everything you thought you knew about what your child needs. There are 3 specific things fathers do. 3 distinct inputs that produce measurable outcomes in your child's resilience, their social competence, and the way they handle hard things years from now. This isn't about dad being better. It's about what happens when both of you are in the room. The science is clear, and it is worth knowing. First, let me tell you what the research actually shows. The framework here comes from a deep synthesis of developmental research on paternal contributions, one grounded in neurodevelopmental science and tracing father-specific inputs across infancy, toddlerhood, and childhood all the way through adolescence. The core finding is this: fathers don't just provide more caregiving, they provide a different kind, and the distinction is not interchangeable. The research identifies 3 distinct mechanisms: high-arousal physical play, guided risk-taking, and a particular approach to navigating conflict, each one targeting a different developmental window in your child's brain. And each one produces outcomes that engaged maternal caregiving, as warm and essential as it is, does not fully replicate. That is not a criticism. It is a description of complementary systems doing what they were each built to do. Now here is what that looks like in your house, and what you can actually do with it. First, the roughhousing is doing something. What looks like chaos, the big swings, the wrestling on the living room floor, the game that keeps getting louder until you intervene, is actually what researchers call high-arousal serve and return. A child getting tossed in the air is not just having fun. Their nervous system is spiking with excitement, and then, in the moment they land safely, it is learning to come back down. That cycle, arousal, then regulation, arousal, then regulation, is literally how the brain builds emotional control. The mechanism the research describes is that fathers uniquely train the baby's and toddler's brain for emotional regulation and social competence through this high stimulation interaction style, not despite it. The reason it has to be high arousal is that low stakes comfort doesn't stretch the system. So what do you do with this? You let it go longer than you want to. Not recklessly, but intentionally. When the roughhousing is safe and your child is laughing, your instinct to dial it down is understandable, but resist it. Your child's nervous system is in a training session. The second thing fathers do is tolerate uncertainty in a way that specifically expands a child's cognitive flexibility. When a dad watches a toddler try to climb something hard and waits, rather than moving in immediately, he is not being inattentive. He is communicating something the research describes as guided risk-taking, a willingness to let the child sit with challenge long enough to figure something out. The research is specific here. Fathers tend to encourage exploration and hold uncertainty in a way that complements the safety and comfort mothers typically provide. Those are not competing goods. They are a developmental pair. The child who has had both, the secure base and the stretched frontier, ends up with something neither parent could have given alone: the cognitive flexibility to try things they don't already know how to do. What this means practically is that when your child is struggling with something physical or social or intellectual, and the dad in the picture is watching instead of helping, that watching may be the point. The instruction here is for both of you, not to withdraw warmth, but to agree, consciously, that there is a version of support that looks like space. Name it between yourselves so it doesn't read as neglect. The third thing is how fathers handle conflict differently, and why that difference is a gift. Research on paternal caregiving finds that fathers and mothers tend to navigate disagreement with children through different styles, and that the father's approach, which often involves less immediate emotional attunement and more direct navigation of the dispute itself, specifically builds social competence. A child who has had to work through a conflict with a parent who didn't immediately soften the tension has practiced something real. They have experienced that discomfort doesn't have to end the relationship. That you can disagree with someone who loves you and both come out intact, that is one of the hardest things adults still struggle to do. The research frames this as part of the meaning-making window, the stage in childhood and adolescence where kids are learning not just how to feel, but how to interpret and navigate the social world. A father who stays in a hard conversation rather than resolving it prematurely is teaching that skill. What you do with this is stop treating his conflict style as a problem to manage. If he holds the line differently than you would, and the child is safe, that difference is developmental data for your kid. You don't need to match each other. You need to trust that your styles together are doing more than either one alone. What the research makes unmistakably clear is that paternal absence, or rigidity, or disengagement, disrupts resilience pathways that maternal caregiving alone cannot fully compensate for. That is not a sentence designed to frighten anyone. It is the honest finding. And its implication is not guilt. It is purpose. The dad in your child's life is not backup. He is a distinct biological and developmental input that your child's brain is specifically built to receive. You are not in competition. You are a system, and a system where both parts are running is what the research calls enough. If this gave you something to bring to your partner, or just something to hold on to for yourself, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, which of these three surprised you most?